Okay, we're back in action here again. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to deal with the butt plate and the patch box area. So I've already marked the bottom of the butt plate. The butt plate is too long, as you can well see. And I like to leave them about 1/8 of an inch higher than the toe plate itself. So I've got that scratch on there. That is the actual bottom of the stock. Then I got the pencil line above, so I'm going to saw that off right on that pencil line. The next thing I'm going to do is I've been looking at this patch box lid, and I really think that it is too long for this particular stock. So I'm gonna cut it back to an even 6 inches and reshape the nose of it. I've marked the bottom edge here, so I'm going to saw that off on this line. Now when I saw that off, I'm going to leave the line and do the last bit of fitting with a rasp on the bottom here, and then we will be putting a metal end on it. Once I get this cut to shape, then we'll put a new pencil line around it, and we can bring the round on the stock up to that pencil line like we mentioned before. Once I get the butt plate cut off and the patch box cut off, then we're going to attempt to put on the toe plate. I like this very simple design, and I think it's good for a kit gun because it's fairly an easy inlet. And but as you can see, these ones that are regular store-bought, I think I got these from Track of the Wolf. They're too narrow. They're not quite wide enough for this particular stock. So what I've done is I have just overlaid this on a piece of brass, and I've scribed the shape of the top on it, and you see the brass is wider, and I'll cut it off at the bottom, and then when we inlet that, we let it overlap and cut it to shape afterwards. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go over to the saw, cut the butt plate off, and cut the patch box down the side. Now I'm going to cut off that little piece on the bottom of the butt plate. I'm using my stick for a push rod. I'm going to cut that. Okay, now we've got the butt plate cut and the patch box door down close to size. Now, as you can see, this patch box door is way too thick, but I'm not going to worry about that just now. It doesn't matter to what we're doing now. I want to be sure that I get the door up tight, but I think before I do that, I'm going to take the old pencil line off. So we don't get a false mark on there. Make sure that is up good and tight. By the way, that is way too tight for what you want. Before you actually put your stain and finish on it, this door should be sanded out a little bit or filed out a little bit so it's not that tight. Or once you get the finish on, you'll never get it back in there. So we're going to pencil, and we will mark around the patch box, good and dark, so we can see it well. For this application here, you can see the ridge here very, very well. But down here, it's very hard to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut that overhead light off and see if that helps us. Yeah, you see how it shows up better? You can see the edge down here. You can see the edge right there. So we'll start right on this side here. You see we're getting up very, very close to that line. I'll do the last little bit with sandpaper. Now up here you can see there's the corner right there. And here it is here. Be careful we don't touch that molding like I just did. Quite a bump on it here. I think I'll actually take one of my chisels and scrape that little corner off there. I'm getting too close to that molding. You can see how nice that scraper takes it off. I'm calling it a scraper, but it is my chisel. Chisel being used as a scraper. A little better control with the scraper than that rasp. Doesn't do it as quick as the rasp. Now I'll take those rasp lines out. Get that down there pretty good. All right, I put the butt plate back on. You can see I've left the end a little bit higher, and what I'll do is when I get the toe plate inlet in on there, then I'll take this down, but I actually want that toe plate to be up, not quite as high as that is, so I'll file it down after the toe plate is in position. Right now, we're going to address the top of the comb. We're a little bit heavy in through here and on this side, and then we're going to to make an adjustment on this groove we put in here. I've got it a little bit too low, so we'll raise it up a little bit by making the groove a little bit higher. It just doesn't quite look right to me. So first thing we're gonna do, now I think we can probably turn that light back on. All right, I'm gonna slide this back further here so that I'll have a little more room to work on it for the rasp. So when I bring this up and I'm working close to the wrist, I can turn this to the side and put this angle so there's more room down on this side for me, for here. So I think I will put a center line on that again. Mark the center right there. And there's the center. These lines are just a guide so you know where you are. See, I've already brought that over. Equal to the line. I'm going to take it just a hair more, and then I'll go to the other side and match it up. I really should have done this before I put that little carving on it. Tell you the truth, I didn't notice it. But it's not too late. Now, while we're doing this, we're going to bring it down. You can see we're a little high here to the butt plate, so we can bring that down, and I'm going to bring it right over. Do that by making it round. But first, I'm going to take it to the line. And we know that that line is straight. We put a straight edge on it this way, and we want to keep that straight. So as long as that pencil line shows, we know we're not blurring the top of that. It's very, very easy to get a, I call it a wow. If you get a dip in the middle there, again, you can see it from quite far away. It's a terrible mistake to make, and the only way you can get it out is to take and lower the butt plate some more so that you can have the room to lower that down. It just, it seems as though no matter what kind of a mistake you make, there's always a solution. When I was given gun building lessons in the shop here, I found that most of the students were afraid that they were going to make a mistake, so they were afraid to take off any wood. And it took them forever to remove wood, or to put an inlay in, or a number of things that they did. But I always told him that, don't worry, you can't make a mistake that I can't fix. And on a number of occasions, they tested me pretty well. But I always seem to come up with a way of fixing it. And everybody makes mistakes. A good craftsman can fix his mistakes. Yeah, looking much better here now. You can see I've taken off quite a bit of wood here. But I haven't taken my line off yet. I'm trying to keep from hitting the butt plate with the brass. The brass isn't too bad, isn't too hard on the brass, but the steel is harder on it than but I don't want to be playing with this all day, so sometimes you have to be a little careless. But not too careless. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good right there. It's gonna come down into here much better. So I think I'll just put the sandpaper on that. And, I have this little piece of wood and I put a piece of leather on the face of it. I don't know if I've shown this before, but I just take and I wrap the sandpaper around it, and I use the part that has the side that has the leather on it to do the sanding. It gives a little cushion in it. It makes it conform to the wood a little nicer. And see how nice that's cutting, so that's a good sharp piece of sandpaper.
So keeping most of that line showing. There we are. Getting some eyes, Gabby. I should tell you when I'm ready to do that.
Okay. I think we're ready to bring that little V groove. I'll try this file. You can see where it is now. It's going down. I really want to bring it back to about this angle here. Would have been easier if I'd have done this sooner, because I have to protect our little design there now, but it's still all right. Don't like to have to go back and do these things really out of order, especially when somebody's watching me. But sometimes you miss these things. Just makes it a little harder, that's all. All right, I think we've got it. Now that really didn't remove a whole lot of wood, but it makes quite a bit of difference. Take this sandpaper. This sandpaper is only 180 grit, but it's a very open grain. I'm not sure where I think I got this at Home Depot, but it's the best sandpaper I've ever used. I gotta get some more of it. Even though as I said, it's 120 grit, it's a very open grain, and it lasts quite a bit, and it cuts great. What I'll do is I'll deepen this cut. You see I've taken it down there to the background, so we want to make that a little bit more of a step there. Now we'll get to it. Now I'm going to fix this side here where I had to cut this down, so I'll just put the pencil line back on there so I'll be able to follow it. And I'm gonna take my knife and follow that pencil line. Easier said than done with my eye the way it is. Let me draw it from this side. All right. Now we've reshaped the little groove that runs up in here, and we've re-lowered the edge that we had to give a little more edge, lowered the background there to match it. Took the corners off here. We're standing right just about up to the pencil line. We'll take a little off the flat on that too. That'll make that patchbox slide in a little bit easy. But we won't do that until we're all ready to do the finished sanding. Now, right here, as you can see, that I'm very, very close to the butt plate. And I'm gonna continue sanding that now, and we'll probably lose that pencil line, but that pencil line has pretty well done its job at this point. But I'm gonna sand down here until we actually get a shine on that little flat piece. On the brass. You can see it's starting to shine there now. Okay, if you look up close there, you'll see that the little flat edge that goes up against the wood, we're right down perfectly flush with that. Now I'll just round the rest.
A smooth round edge. And that top is just about where we want it to be. Take a little bit more off right there.
You'll see that piece was just a little bit too high. It looks like we're taking our carving off here, but we're not. It's just... another little duster. That takes it out of the cracks there. All right, now I think we'll just push this upside down. And we'll go to work on the toe plate. So when I work on that, if you notice, everything that I've done, you can step back, is I've kept my work up close where I'm working at here, so I don't have to bend down. I just couldn't do it all day if I was down here. I ended up building this bench a little bit too low, but as it turned out, it worked out well because I put these little spacers in. And by having a spacer here, gives me a little more space between the top and so when I'm filing this way, it gives me a little more room for my tools and all. But when I get to do the toe, it's too high for lowering the butt ends for me to work on there. And I use this for a couple other things too. But I just made a little piece of plywood and I put leather in here so it wouldn't scratch the steel or the wood. Let this back just a little bit. Give me some room. Just put this in here and I make sure it's touching down tight on the bench so that it doesn't slip out on me. When you start getting the rifle down close to the finish, you don't want to be dropping it or have it slip and bang against one of the vices. Now, I can bring this up here. That will hold that, and I can come all the way up to here. I twist this so it makes it smaller in there. Make sure all this is tight. And there I am with my toe plate right down where I can see it and go to work on it. The wood's good. I'll put that line back on. Here we go with another line. Now I'll mark the center of the plate here, and I've got this mark right here, which is the center. And I'll put that center line. I only need it down on this end. I don't need it all the way up here. Now earlier, I scribed this being too narrow for here. These are the ones I buy, and they are too narrow for the stock, but I do like this design. It's very simple. It should be very easy to inlay. And I have scribed it on a wider plate. You can see this plate is more than wide enough. And when you get a plate to go on here, don't make the mistake of making it as wide as the top of this, because when you inlet it down, it gets down to here, you actually need about another, at least the 16th, maybe 3/32 wider than it is at the top. So don't make the mistake of getting a piece that's too narrow. You get an inlet down there and you find out that it doesn't come out flush to your wood. But I've got this scribed on here, and I just took a black marking pencil and marked the brass, or blackened the brass with the marking pencil, then laid this on it and scribed around it. Now we're gonna cut down to that and file it. The easiest way I find to do it is to make some rough cuts in here with the bandsaw. Now you can do that with a hacksaw too, if you don't have a power bandsaw, but I do, and that's what I'm going to use. So we'll go over to the bandsaw. We're going to give this a cut on the bandsaw. Now we're not going to try to cut right to that line on the bandsaw. We're just going to hog a lot of the wood off and try not to cut our fingers off while we're doing this. As you can see, I've got it rough cut right down, pretty close to the line, and I'm going to take the rest off with a file. I have some round files and some small files, and I just file it right over to the line. That doesn't hardly take any time at all. Okay. All right, I've got a round-faced, very coarse file, and this matches up pretty good with that first curve in here. So that's what I'm going to use. And I do the same thing with the file I do with my gouges. If I have a file that's filing very, very close to the line, I'll let the curve of the file establish the cut. Now you see that cut very, very close to the line. I'll do the other side, and then I'll just keep going around it with, and you can see how coarse that file is, and that's fine for something like this, because you want it to cut fast, or you just file forever. You can see how fast that came off there. Once I get it rough cut to where I've got right down to the line, I have a fine file that I'm just going to use to smooth up the file marks from that coarse file. And this happens very quickly. You see, I've got that shape pretty darn good. I'll just do the fine file on this side, and then we'll drill the holes in it. Okay. All right. Now you can see we've got a nice little plate cut out there. It is wider than we need, and it's longer than I was going to put it. But I decided to make it a little bit longer because it is so wide. But the length doesn't matter too much. You can put them stubby. I've seen them very stubby like that, and I've seen them very long. This one I like about that length. And I'm going to butt that right up tight against the butt plate now. And when we lower this in, it will actually get longer because the stock goes in. And I'm going to depend on that a little bit. I'm going to loosen this back screw just enough that comes back. To make sure it does come back enough. Now I've drawn that pencil line on the center of the stock, and these holes are in the center of the plate. So I'm going to bring that up tight against the plate and look in the holes and put the pencil line in the center of the hole. Now, all I'm going to do here This is the same drill bit that made that hole in the metal. All I'm gonna do is make a dot. And I'm just gonna do one at a time. The only reason that dot is there is really just to mark the spot for the correct drill size. All right, now we get our high-tech piece of equipment here again, because we want that screw to go in at a right angle to the top of this, and it's got to be a right angle to it this way and this way. So this serves the purpose. So I have a bunch of different holes. That will fit in that hole. Now I can set this for the same length as the screw. So there's the screw. So I'll shove that drill in until it's just as deep as it's just a tad deeper than the screw. Double check that. Yep, good. Now, we'll go to our little dimple, make sure we get in the center of that. Put that on, that squares us in both directions. There's our first screw hole. If you don't use something to make that square, a piece of metal would probably be better, but that serves a purpose.
That hole may not be quite deep enough. I mean, wide enough, not deep enough.
Now I'll swing that back over until I see that hole, the line in the middle of the hole, and I'll tighten that. Now, the reason I didn't do both holes at the same time, which would seem to have made more sense to save time, is if you don't get the first hole perfect, you'll be off on the second hole. So that will hold it steady. We'll make the little dimple first. All this takes just a little bit of extra time, but in the long run, it'll save you hours.
Oh yeah, nice and tight.
Now, we'll mark that with a pencil. Don't worry about the line getting out. I mean, if you go out over the line like that, doesn't matter. We don't care about that. We just want a good line right up on the edge of that. One other thing I like to do when I've got a point like this, I like to just make a pencil line off the mark right there like that. It just helps you, because we've got it right there. It just helps you when you're ending that point to make sure you get a good sharp point. And very, very important to get a good fit on the stuff. It only takes a little bit of care, and you can make these really perfect. Now, having said that, I damn well better make it perfect. But there is a little trick to it. And this was taught to me by Gary Brumfield over 25 years ago. Gary has since passed away, but everybody in the gun world knew Gary. Very, very nice man, very talented. All right, now, there's where we're going to inlet. So, what we're going to do is we're going to match up those circles with our gouges, just like we did for the lock panels and all that. So, here's where it really pays to have enough gouges. So, I'm going to make a guess, my first guess. I think this one is too tight a radius. No, it's not. It's for there. Now here's the trick. I'll do this side first so that Gabby can see it here. I'm going to use this long handle one so I can stay out of your way. Normally I'd use a little shorter one. Now when I say I'm going to leave the daylight, what I mean is when I put this down, now I don't care if we overlap the line. But let me try one other radius here first. Yep, that's two. And this one is too flat, I believe. Yep. So this is the one we're going to use. Now when I put this down on there, if you look at that, you see there's daylight. In other words, there's wood showing, white wood shown between the gouge and the pencil line. Now you keep your eye on that. Now, one side will crush better than the other, but what we're going to do is we're going to, you see what we got there now? That's crushed the wood all the way back to the opposite side of the pencil line. Now, after we get it inlet, that's going to allow that brass to go down in there very nicely. And after it's all inlet, we wet that with water, and it closes the wood up tight. And it should be absolutely, absolutely tight. I'm going to go here. Boy, this is hard on my eyes. That crushed pretty easily, so there we are. We've got our little daylight of wood there. And if it doesn't quite, like that one did, you can just lean your chisel over a little bit and crush that wood back. Now I'm going to do it on the other side here. You don't have to come over here, Gab. This probably won't crush as quick. Yeah, it did. Usually it'll crush one way better than the other, but this worked both ways. And you want to make that cut as deep as the brass is thick, or inlay is thick. Now, the next one is going to be a lesser curve. This one will probably do it. That's a 5. Okay, I'll do this side first so you can watch it. Yeah. Now you see this? Okay, you see the daylight there? I can't.
I see it.
Is it there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, this is terrible with my eyes. Okay, we'll hold Gabby responsible if this doesn't.
Oh no. See?
See, that squashed it right back over the pencil line, which was perfect. We'll finish the curve. There you go. I could see that this time. I don't know why I didn't last. Didn't quite go. Okay. I think you can. Now, we've got it all, we did the plunge cut all the way around. The only place we left a little daylight still was right there, but I think that will still go. Now, we want to mark the outside edge here, and we know that the brass is, that brass is actually 50 thousandths thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a line on the outer edge at 50 thousandths, or somewhere thereabouts. So if we hold that right there, that's pretty damn near perfect. That's more of a guide than anything. We could go a little bit deeper if we had to get it good and straight, but once you start taking off wood, you can't tell whether you're going up or downhill. So we've got that little guide line there, and I'm going to leave the butt plate on just for the first part of taking this wood out, and it kind of acts as a guide as far as looking at it. It's a reference point, I guess. Once we get to removing wood back here, then we have to take it out so we can get it all really smooth. Now, there's a couple of ways you can take this out also. You can do it very similar to the way we cut the molding around the edge. I like to use these palm chisels and go around the edge and make this little cut right here. And if you've done your plunge cut properly, that little piece of wood will come right out. It's a good hard piece of wood. And you want to take that out. Eventually what we're going to do, we're going to leave this toe plate just a little bit proud, or a little bit higher than the wood itself. But if you go lower by mistake, then you can just lower the surface. That is very, very hard wood, so I'm going to use that bull nose. Now this is the same radius gouge as the other one, but it has that bull nose, and it'll be a little easier. It doesn't make as big a cut. It's easier for me to push in. We'll get some big, strong guys. They can push that other one. This is all I want to do. And I've sharpened all these gouges before I started any of this. Now you see right here when I put that little pencil line right off the point? What that did, it helped me when I was putting the gouge in here to make the edge stop right on that line. And that is just a guide. It just tells you where that is. That's a good thing to do, whether it's this or anything else that you're inletting. Now we've gone all the way around with that little cut, taking just the edge out. And if you've got a good sharp gouge, and these are super sharp, you can make a nice clean cut. Now we got to take all this wood off down to the depth, and we got to watch that for that line that we don't go down below that, because that would look terrible if we got down below it. Now, the average person that never did anything like this would probably think a flat chisel would be the way to go with this, and that's not what we're going to use. So don't get in your way. "99 out of 100 times on the toe plate like this, the grain will be running out this way up, so this is the way to go. But when you start your cut, if you see that it's starting to tear, you can tell which way the grain is running right off. Then you would have to go the other way. But on the toe plate, 99 out of 100 times, it's going down this way is the correct way to go. Now, the reason I'm using a gouge is because I can see, just barely, but I can see the depth of that groove. And if you hold that depth all the way, when it comes time to flatten it, the bottom of this groove will be the depth you're looking for. You can even use a smaller gouge. You want to be very careful when you get into the edge. This we will do with a flat chisel after we establish our depth. And you can see how important that original plunge cut is. You see this wood breaking off right to the edge. If you don't get it down, obviously, it won't snap off at the edge, and then you'll be able to bust off the piece that's up above. So you're better off to have it a little deeper than not deep enough. Actually, with this, we could go with something a little bit wider. But this is a very, very shallow radius. Let me get this light over here. Now, if you're not getting nice clean cuts like that, your tool isn't sharp enough. And this, you test it the same way. You'll see how sharp it is. It's polished to bright. The same thing, you put it on your thumbnail. If it holds by itself, you know it's nice and sharp. Now, if you were doing this with a flat chisel, what happens is it breaks the outer edge, because it's just as deep up close to your outer edge as it is in the middle. But this one, this is coming up out of the edge and makes a nice smooth cut along the edge so you don't tear the upper edge. That's why the gouge works so well on this. And you have much more control over the gouge than you do a flat chisel. And when we get to the very outer edge, you'll see how important it is. You can see our pencil line that's on there. Now, it would be next thing to impossible to follow that as perfectly as that with a flat chisel. And I'm trying to stay just up away from it. And that is the bottom of the radius of the gouge. It's almost time to pull that butt plate off. I've got to move this light over this. You see the difference with this light here, you can't tell the depth. But if you go and put it on the side, you can see all those ripples. And if I shut that overhead light off, which I think I'm going to do, you'll be able to see it even easier. Now you see how it stands out there now? I find cutting this side is harder for me because I'm out of position to see the line. I got to look around here, and I can't come over here and go this way because it would be against the grain. It would want to tear it up. So I've got to deal with it the best I can. trying to keep it so you can see it at the same time. That's not bad. And you want to make sure this outside cut goes down to your pencil line. Otherwise, when you get to the end of the run, you're very liable to lift that corner up. See, with a nice sharp gouge, you can actually cut across the grain. It's a little hard to do right here because we haven't got the swivel locked in, and this is a little tippy on us.
It's a little dangerous.
You always have a tendency to leave the middle too high. That pencil line on the outside pretty much guides you on that. So, but when you get in the middle, I guess we'll have to take off that butt plate now. Now we've got the butt plate off, and we've brought this right out to the edge of the end, or up against the butt plate. Now you can go back, and I just gave this gouge a couple of quick stroppings just to tune that edge up a little bit. And I'm just going in here and I'm taking off some of those high ridges. Now we can take our wood rasp. Here it is. And we've got to remember about our line there. See, I'm not quite down to that line.
You hold your hand on that right there, Daddy.
If you're like me and you're having a little trouble seeing where it's coming off, you can just take your pencil scribble it on there like that.
You seem to be down to that line. Or on the right and the left. Okay, now I'll take
my gouge, my chisel. This down here. You see, we do have some low spots in there that we didn't get down to. And using this chisel upside down, This one's a little too wide. All right, all right, we've got it down there, which is, I believe it's pretty close. So we'll just lay this in here just to see how we are for depth. And it looks like we're just about pretty much dead on. But what we'll do is, I want it to be, at the finished product, I want this metal to be higher than this wood. So all we have to do, once we get it inletted and perfect, then we can just sand this down until the wood goes just below this. Now, a perfect way to find the bumps and the high spots is to put some blackening on the bottom of this. Lay that on there and rub it like that, and we can see exactly where the high spots are. And then at this point, we'll use our scraper or our chisel, made to look like a scraper, and just scrape off the part that's black. And we want to get this as flat as we can, but if anything, you would want it low in the middle to make sure that the edges are down, because the only place you're going to see is that crack on the outside. If it was a little hollow in the middle, you wouldn't actually see that, but we're going to try to get it very, very close. Again, not because you're going to be able to see underneath it, but maybe 200 years from now or 300 years from now, some historian will pull the gun apart to see how it's made and look at it and say, wow, boy, that guy was a real craftsman. He had a little pride. He even made it smooth underneath where you couldn't see. I'm not sure what difference that'll make to me at the time, but for some reason that does make a difference to me. All right, I blacken the back, all the back of this now, so we can see how this is going to be. And oh, I forgot. What I usually do, I just take the sharp corner off that, and I do that with a very fine file. See this on there? I've just taken the inside corner off so that it won't be a sharp edge. It not only helps it going in, but when it's going to go in and out a couple of times, it's liable to chip the wood as it's coming out if it's square and sharp like that. So we're just going to lay that there and get the screws. just to hold that in there. The only reason I'm putting these screws in is the screws will hold it. If we have one edge that's too tight, it'll push the inlay over, and we don't want it to move. If it's too tight, we want it to squash the wood back, if it's not already squashed back from our plunge cut. Get this down there. And now we'll lay our, we can use our same high-tech piece here that we used before, and just lay it on there. And press that down. You can see that this piece here is not going as far down as these, but you can see these are just about perfect. All right, when we take that out now, we'll have black marks where it's touching, and I'm sure it'll show some black in here, but you see we are down deep enough. And we'll take a look at the outer edge here, and we're good. Looks like we're down good there and here. I pulled it off now, and you can see that it's a little bit high right in the middle here, and of course that'll leave a crack over this side. So we got to get that blackening off there. The rest of it is okay, and where it was high down here, you can see in there, it's only that little tiny spot right there. And this is a nice pointed little chisel. It's angled on both sides, and it's perfect for any jobs that are just like this. But you gotta be careful. There's that little bugger right there. Look at that little bugger. That's what was holding that high. That's all it takes. So I don't see any blackening there, so it's mostly right here. So we'll put our scraper to work there again.
Between my eyes being bad, I'm trying to keep the camera in the subject here. If you get these chisels really sharp, you can scrape sideways with them, forward, any way you want.
Just handling that inletting black for a few little times. You can see my hands are getting black again. Time to clean them. All right, when I said my hands are getting a little bit dirty, once you get that black on there, you're gonna make your stock black, and there's no need of that. So all it takes is a little bit of this orange hand cleaner. There's lanolin in this, so it's good for your hands. And only takes a moment to do it. Your paper towel, wipe off the excess.
Smells nice too.
And then a nice clean towel. So so you don't get that oil on your stock either. We're back, nice clean hands again. Now we'll just rub this way, and you can see, pretty obvious. Where it's touching. Now this is nice because it's touching all along the outer edge. But there's a little bit right there that we want to take off. And then this piece here, we want to see the black go all the way to the edge like it is over here. Now we'll just rub that on there again. I'm not going to bother putting any more blackening on it because I think there's probably enough on there. There we are. Now you see, we've got black touching here, and we've got it almost all the way to the edge there, and you can see that one spot that is higher than the rest of it. And we'll take care of that right now. I'm not going to scrape over towards the edge because we want it touching there. That's going to look pretty good this time, I think. There we are, touching nicely on both outside edges. So we're going to put it right in place. I'm purposely not countersinking these yet because I like the square edge on the brass. It keeps the screw going in square. After we're all through finishing and all, we'll put the countersink in them, and that'll bring it down. Cool. I think we're looking pretty good there right now. Now, we're going to, I move this up so the jaws would grab it here so this wasn't turning on me, so I'm going to bring it back. Now, so that it will turn. And we'll see how much overhang we got here. That's quite a bit. So rather than file it off, that's too much to file it. You could do it that way and just file it until it comes down right. But I try to limit my filing and rasping as much as I can, so I'm gonna scribe a line on that. And I'll show you a great time saver. Well, I don't know if it's a time saver. Take the time to take this off, but it's a labor saver, that's for sure. Take this back out.
Press the button at the same time.
Every time you take it off, you get a chance to make it a little better. Now you can see where my scribe lines are, and I'm going to take that over to the belt sander, and that'll come off very, very quickly. We'll go over. This belt is it was a coarse belt. It's getting a little worn now, but one of the things you can do, I saw on ALS somebody was asking about this, using a rubber eraser on your belts, your sanding belts. See, I didn't take it right over to the scratch itself. I just took the bulk of it off. This side, of course, you can see there's a much. There it is. It's a lot easier than doing all that filing. Here's the butt. The butt is a lot closer than I thought, so I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to bother hitting that with the sander at all. I actually left a little extra wood on here for a carving, probably a little more than necessary, because it doesn't take much. But I'm glad there's that much wood, because I got to try to get rid of those little wormholes that are there, and that's going to make it easier for me.
I'll take off some of that wood with this. I'm just going to put a little pencil mark on this right here so I'll know when I get there. Don't trust my eyes. was done, this would have been, if I hadn't taken a good part of that on the, with the sander over there. And we'll go back to the course. Back to our course file.
This is one of those cases where I said, always use a good coarse cutter as long as you can before you, otherwise you spend a lot of time unnecessary. I'll put a little pencil mark on this one too. So I'll know when I get there. Here we are. We got a nice tight fit right on that bottom edge, which is what we want. Check the other side again. This one we can go a little more. All right, now that we've got the width of our toe plate on there, what I'm doing now is I'm matching that little flat on the bottom right up so that the concave comes right up to the bottom edge of the plate. And I do that with a piece of sandpaper on a little stick, and I've got that pretty well. I put the light on that for you. You can see that it's right up tight on the bottom. The concave goes right up on the edge, and then there's a flat just a few inches down, and then it tapers off to nothing as it goes down there. And we'll put a little sandpaper on this when we get to the finished sanding. So I've got this side done. And I had to take a little piece, little wood off there in order to get it down where it should be. And now I'm gonna do the other side. Okay, now I've got the other side done here. I've got that concave finished all the way back, and you see the concave ends right at the bottom edge of the toe plate. And we got a nice tight fit there. Now if you come around to the rear over here and you look, you see that classic nice look at the butt with a nice curve on both sides. It just adds so much shape to it. Very, very artistic shape there. I love to see that on the butt of a rifle. Now we gotta fit the butt plate. And what that requires is to file the end of that brass plate off, so this will go in tight. Now it's pretty close, but if you look right here, you can see it's holding out. But we did really well on that. Actually, I called it a little bit too close. If there was a space there, I'd be in trouble. There's no way to do it other than make a whole new block plate and make it a hair longer. But then you're making a plate to fit into a mortise. It's a lot easier to put a plate into the wood than it is to do vice versa. But anyway, we lucked out on that. We didn't overkill. So now it's just a matter of filing this little edge It's off. I'm gonna move this light down. And you see the advantage to this light here? I can move this to anywhere I want. And right now, I'm gonna move this right up here. That gives me enough light to get down beyond this end here. Now I'll move this up. And I'll go to work on the end of this. That is so close. I'm going to use this coarse file on here just for a very short time. And what I want to do is to make sure I can see when I touch down here. And I certainly don't want to go by it. So we better check it every now and again. Very, very close. Very, very close. All right, I'm going to switch to the fine file now and bring that right down to the foot plate on now. And you can see it's got it right in tight. There's absolutely no crack left there. Now I'm going to bring the top down a little bit, but I want to leave it a little bit higher than the toe plate itself. And I'm going to lay this, I know these plates are 50 thousandths thick, so I'm going to lay that on there and use that as a guide. See what that looks like. Yeah, I can see that. And now I'm going to file this, and I'm going to file it at this angle here so that it comes down just a little bit, and the top of that will be parallel with that.
That's more like it. A little bit more.
Now I'll go to the finer file.
That's good. That'll do it for now.
We've got the toe plate on. We've got a nice fit here. It's all down nice and tight. It's a little too deep in here, and we actually want it to be about as high as it is too low right now. So all we have to do in order to bring that wood down to where I really want it to be in relation to the top of the brass is we just take this screw out. So over here we don't lose it. Zip a little tighter. Bring in a good fresh piece of sandpaper right there. sand this down until we start touching that brass. Then we'll take the plate out and sand it just a little bit more. And that will actually, when we put the finish on, when we put the stain and the sealer on, that will fill that a little bit, and that will automatically raise it up a little bit. And that's about all you really want for height. Now, as I mentioned before, when you inlet this, by crushing the wood over, it pulls it apart. When you put the inlay in and you put water on the outside, it'll swell it back. But as you can see, what we've got here right now, the joint is as tight as it gets. And you get a close-up on that. There's no gaps. That's as tight as, that's a press fit. And that's what we were looking for. So, I'm gonna put that screw back in and call that perfect. And we'll let the finish go inside the mortise, and that will raise that up just enough that this will be able to clean that without removing the finish. Okay.